from last week to this week, I did get a lot of the save load stuff done. Also, did some of the artifact list stuff. Let's see, anything else that's really big? Moved text to actually using files and stuff. And hey, decent scrimp. Good to see you right off the bat here. It is, I guess, as mentioned last week, daylight savings time, so the time you seem to appear seems to have moved up an hour. I hope you're doing okay. As I mentioned in email, if you do watch Batman versus Superman, we need to talk. There's a lot to say about that movie. There's a lot. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil anything. Let's see. Did experiment with changing the shader to an actual vignette shader instead of just like this, semi-transparent overlay. Looked cool, but it did use up a lot of frames, and I don't think we have that many frames to use up, so I want to keep it off for now. Maybe in the future as an option, maybe from the options menu for people who have high-end PCs or something. I also have the enemies aiming ahead of the players so that they can actually intercept them now. Added a sound music test mode. Prepared the rooms for the opening and the closing, so now the actual game flow goes through an opening, and then if you finish, you go through a closing. There's not really much going on there. It's just about a couple of seconds of you flying or something, but that's about it. Got the scan lines to work with other resolutions. The key was just to keep updating the resolution. That was actually pretty easy. Was it? I'm trying to remember who said it. It might have been 123 Gas. It might have been someone else, but the scan lines. Tried adjusting them to see if they would work better with different figures and stuff, but the shader that I have doesn't really do frequencies or anything like that, so I can't really do too much adjustment with it. Combined the save files into one and added like the last of the new tiles, the cactus tiles, and also added some of the tiles that we'll use in the opening. That's most of it. If you do want to see the details, you can come over to Trello.com and just search for Trello and Project Skyring, and you should be able to come to this board. It is public. And Decent Scrimp said, I really have no plans to see it, so email and spoil away. Okay, well, yeah, alright, I'll email you about it then. There is plot stuff, like maybe you'll see it later on Netflix or something, I'm sure, but I know you really don't like that one guy as an actor, and he doesn't. Yeah, yeah. He didn't need to be in the movie. And Tarentum, good to see you. Been a while, so nice to see you. Nice to see you. Let's see. Let's jump right into it. Let's start up GameMaker. Okay, so jumping into the game. So I'm in the middle of a save right now, so actually let's get rid of this data real quick so that we can start from the beginning, because I need to show you what we've got for the opening right now. Project Skyring, so delete the save data, and let's try this. Yeah, the adjective you used to describe the movie Decent Scrimp is exactly the adjective that I had in my mind. But it's interesting. So yeah, that was just a couple of seconds, but that's where the opening kind of fits into the game flow. The enemies are much more aggressive now, and they actually do aim for the player, so they will get ahead of you if you're not careful. And let's see, am I about to get another island? Yes, I am. Here's my debug feature. And these are our islands. Saving and loading works for the most part, as far as I can tell. I probably still need to debug it. I'm sure there's a lot of Panda Bits and Cirrus there. It'd be nice if I could get the Decent Scrimp map name to show up. But I think the main thing I need to test with saving and loading is what happens if you quit in the middle of saving and stuff like that. I need to start adding safety features in there, because my assumption is that the save file is okay For games like Project Spaghetti, it was a little easier because you were saving only at the end of a stage, but with this, you're saving at different points. Like if you do find a monolith or you do find artifacts, it saves that stuff. But let's get into the opening here. So as you can see from the game, when I first started, all I had was this really minor opening where you're just flying for a few seconds and then it jumps into the actual game. But we want to do that according to timelines. And GameMaker timelines work as you would expect a timeline to work. You basically tell the game to do things at certain steps. There's one thing I really don't like about GameMaker's timelines, and that's that they're frame-based. Which makes sense, but no, let's just call it what it is. Timeline opening. But they're the one thing in the game that you can't code around if you change your frame rate. And that's the thing I don't like about them. So let's see. If there is actually a way to create timelines through script, might be safer. It wouldn't be as clear because it's not in a timeline like this. This is basically what a timeline is, you know. 180 frames into the game, do this. 420 frames into the game, do this. Usually for like scripted events and things like that. But scripts, no, this isn't what I want. I want to see what the scripting things you can do with timelines are. GML, timeline add. Adds a new timeline. Well, alright, that's fine. Moment adds script. Adds a script to the timeline at the given step. Okay, well, if you did use the scripting version of this, then you can get away with this stuff, which is exactly what they're doing here. Room speed times 60. So 60 seconds later, do this 3 times for 60 seconds each. Yeah, 1 minute intervals. So if we do everything through script, if we have to, for example, drop the frame rate from 60 to 30, or for some reason we want to bump it up later, it won't screw everything up. The only problem is doing it through scripting, it's going to look kind of messy. I do like the visual of this because it's very clear. So what we could do is use the visual stuff to get the timeline done and then convert it over to script. That seems like a good kind of medium way to do this. And I remember from Project Spaghetti that I had a lot of trouble with getting timelines to work the way I expected them to, so this is probably going to be a difficult step. But we'll see what happens. So in the opening right now, what am I doing? System object opening. I have this opening controller, which is basically right now just creating a dummy player and, you know, waiting 6 seconds for the room to change. But we want it to start using the timeline instead. So control, timelines. Let's see, I think it's this stuff. Yeah, these are the timeline icons. So set timeline, I think, is what I need to be doing. Timeline opening, start immediately, don't loop. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so you can decide to start the timeline like partway through, so you can use the same timeline in multiple places if you want to. And let's see, what else do we have? Timeline position, so you can change the position based on events. Speed it up. Start the timeline. So each object can only have one timeline, so you can. It's kind of like an animation thing, if you want to force events on things. You can pause it, and you can stop it. So we want to set the timeline to timeline opening, and get it started. So let's see, player, tell me, start on the ground. Yeah, is this happening? Yeah, I guess it is happening. So the player starts on the ground, 3 seconds later they start flying. So the first thing we can do is just convert this. So See, this is where the frame rate comes in. Right now I'm using room speed times 3, but to do this on a timeline, I have to do 3 times 60, which is 180. And move this up here. And that's that one. Get rid of that. The next alarm is 6 seconds later. It jumps into the game. So 6 times 60, yeah. So 360. Jump to the game. So right now it's just converting the timeline to this stuff just to see if it works. And we have to keep deleting the save file to get the opening again. So let's see what happens. Theoretically, the same thing that happened before should happen again. If it doesn't, then obviously we have stuff we need to fix. Yep. Okay, so 3 seconds, it starts flying, and 3 seconds later jumps into the game. So the timeline is working. That's good news. So we can use it. Off to a good start. Can depend on this. So let's bump this up real high, just so I have time to work with. Let's see. Let's go with a full 10 seconds. Let's go with 20 seconds. So 60 times 20. So it'll be 20 seconds before they jump to the room. Let's make this right before that. I should probably just have my calculator out. I can't do math in the morning. 18, 1080, 1080p. Should have known that one. Let's add something after 10 seconds, 5 seconds. Let's go with 5 seconds. So 60 times 3. Let's start the character moving. And where is that stuff? Yeah, I don't usually use this stuff. Move free. Move towards. Move towards. That's not bad. PL speed. I think I have a PL player speed defined. Let's go with relative. And just see what this does. 500 up. Okay. Let's take it with baby steps. Let's just make sure each thing that we're doing actually works as it's supposed to be working in my head. Yes, I need to keep deleting stuff because new game doesn't quite work yet. It doesn't clear out all the old save data. That's actually something I should add to my task list for this weekend. Because yes, if my family is coming back next weekend, this is my last weekend to actually get the hard stuff done. So I want to make sure that I get all of like the hard tasks out of the way, like the complicated stuff where I have to sit here for 3 hours going, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? So that's a lot of pressure. I know what the problem is. Yeah. The problem is this timeline, if I can click on it, is set for object opening. So I don't want that. I want this. Player dummy. Okay. Otherwise, it's trying to move the opening up, and that doesn't do anything because the opening is just kind of an object, like a system object. It's not actually a visual thing. Come on, move. Player speed. I don't have a player speed. Alright, let's look at this then. I have an H speed and a V speed. I thought I had a player speed variable. Maybe I don't. It's possible. Yeah, I guess I just never did that. Alright. Alright, that's fine. Let me just see how I'm doing walking real quick in the actual game. Because I know I slow things down. Like if you're going over sand and stuff like that, I do slow the player down. But it's mostly just using targets and speeds. X target equals alert that, manual rate. So I'm using manual rate to determine like the basic speed. So we should probably keep using this system, just so it's consistent with what's actually in the game. Because if I start using something different, it's gonna look a little weird. So let's get rid of that. I don't really like using those things anyway, so. Alright. But in this case I can just define this. Y minus 500. And the only problem is, here's another thing with timelines that's a bit of a problem, is that because it's not a loop, it's going to execute this once, and then that's going to be it. We'll see. Let's see, how does my dummy on the ground work? Step, manual input. Motion set direction 0. Okay, let's add this in so it does this every step. So if there is an X target and a Y target that's defined and different from X and Y, it's going to try to move towards it. So we have to put that in the actual player object. And I suppose I could define this to be something else. Because if the player is going to be moving over different surfaces, we could do that. Let's keep it as it is for now, though. Update the targets. Okay, so theoretically it should set the Y target to be 500 up of where the character is, and then the character's step should start lerping them towards that. Let's find out. Okay, so it's not broken. That's good. Is he going to start moving, though? Nah, he's not moving, is he? And I think I know why. Again, made the same mistake again. I need to be doing this. Okay. There we go. Let's do that. I'm actually surprised it worked, because it was trying to set X target and Y target for opening. Well, I guess it set it for opening, but it never used it. So fair enough. Come on, move. Come on, move. Move up. Move up. Now. Yeah, it does the flying thing, but doesn't move up. So that step stuff doesn't seem to be working. Just so I don't have to wait 5 seconds, let's just set it to 1 second for now. So object player dummy, let's just set dummy. X target ground. Because my fear is that there might be something in here that's overwriting this. Change to flying player, that should be okay. I'm doing something stupid with this, aren't I? I need to do this. Yeah, I'm being silly. Target. No. What? Wait, what am I doing? What? That's what happens to me when I don't have enough coffee. So I want X target to just be set here. This is in the timeline. Okay, so we want X target to be X and Y target to be Y minus 500. Not this silly lerp stuff. Let's check again. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Okay, and this is the X target stuff, but I don't want this to be X target. I want this to be X and Y. Yeah, the reason I had X target equaling something in the actual player ground is because I check for obstacles and stuff like that. So this actually changes the X, which it should. So I had 2 mistakes. How embarrassing. There we go! Okay, so the player moved up 500 pixels and should transform into the flying thing after a couple of seconds. Yeah, that's the one thing about doing it after 1 second, is that the flying thing takes that much longer. Okay. Got the player moving. So that's a start. Let's see. That's fine for now. Let's see. Let's change this to 300. Just so that the player sticks around where they are for about 5 seconds. And let's actually change some of those BG things that we've got going. Because I just did this. Where are we? I just threw down random tiles just to know that there was something in this room other than ocean. So let's actually make these proper things. Hopefully the hills show up now. Please? Please? Yeah, for testing purposes, I should make this shorter. So the final thing will have animation and all that stuff. There we go. Okay. So it works. Now the only problem is that the player flies and it jumps into the game not too long after that. So let's go into there. Let's change this up a little bit. And yeah, it's fine. So 600 would be 10 seconds. So 5 seconds until they go up, 5 seconds before they start flying, and about 10 seconds of flying before it goes into the game. Let's delete this save data again. Yep, good. Good. Okay, we're in the right direction. At least the tiles are showing up before I go and break. Okay, so we're starting to get things done. It's just the hex tiles are kind of a mess, but I'll fix that later. No worries. So timelines are working, that's working. So let's just check the task list real quick. So yeah, we have an opening sequence. That's fine. There's more that needs to go into this timeline, I guess. I shouldn't just break that off. That happens. And start with an open monolith. Okay, so we need to actually do something where in the game itself, the player does start with a checkpoint. We'll see. We'll see what we can do with that. But I do need to take a break, so I will be back in about 6 minutes after the usual animated short and get back into it. Okay, that should be good enough. Good enough for now. And the other thing I want to do is have the player actually going towards this tile. I don't know why I clicked out of this. I want to have them go towards this tile that has the boomerang thing with it. This one. Objects, okay. That is at, change position. That is here. So rather than using relative coordinates, I could just use absolute coordinates. So let's try that. 5264. That one I can remember. That one I cannot remember. Unless it was 8675309. 5264. 5264. So going back to our timeline.
Time's running out.
264. And that maybe a little bit further to the left. No, down. 52. And add. Doesn't take too long to get there. Let's see. 450. And what I want to do is change that tile so that it looks like the player collected that boomerang that's on the altar. So with objects rang, with the tile that has that boomerang, change the sprite index to sprite hex rang off, I think was what I called it. Yes. And add at 510. Let's have the player move a little bit left. Let's see, 128, 256. Let's have them move about there. And This is all going to be a timing thing. Let's have them start walking up. And then take off. Let's see what this looks like. It's going to be impossible to time this thing until going through it a couple of times. I moved really fast. So yeah, I need to tone that coordinate down, but it actually wasn't too far off the mark in terms of where they're supposed to be going. Obviously, they're not animated or anything, so it looks pretty bad, but update the target to go up, turn the boomerang off, update the target to go up, to go left, I should say. Let's make this 600, 630. And I don't want this Y to be that big. 106. Let's just try 3. Let's see what this looks like. So now I actually am using MP potential step, so it'll be a fixed speed. But yeah, you get this stuff. So generous of it to update the direction for me. Okay. So let's fix 2 things. let's fix 2 things. One, the player direction. Let's see. The other thing is the actual destination is a little too high. Yeah, there's the problem. So MP potential step might be tough to use. Yeah, MP potential step. It needs to update the direction to have the character be in their proper place. So let me just do this. Direction minus 0. And see if this solves my problem. The only thing I'm a little worried about is if the final player does do stuff with animation. Image angle might come in handy. Oops. It might be a fix that limits my options later. But this should at least fix the visual part of it. So it's interesting. MP potential step needs direction. Needs to be able to update direction to do things properly. It's very interesting. But we're almost there. Almost there and almost to the end of the show. But let's just get that last bit timed right. So let's change this to 1000 and make this that. I wonder why MP potential step needs direction. It's probably using direction somewhere behind the scenes. You learn something new every day. I knew I was doing like the direction minus 90 when drawing the sprite, because that's how I do it in the game itself as well. But I was hoping to be able to use as much as possible from the original, like the in-game character in terms of drawing and stuff, so that they could share code. If I just set image angle to always be 0, then I have to be careful about if I do stuff with image angle in the in-game character, it's going to work differently with the opening character. So I didn't want to do that. which is why I wanted to set direction to 0 after MP potential step, but that screws up MP's potential step, so can't do that. This at least works for now. If for some reason in the future it's not going to be what I need, then I'll have to think about it then. But this is working. So it just always draws the image at 0 angle. But I think we're set. We've got the opening working. It's just a matter of adjusting the visuals, obviously adding sound effects, animation, all that sort of stuff. But it was mostly getting the game flow in there that I wanted to get in there, because I remembered from Project Spaghetti, our Season 1 game, that timelines were a little difficult. But I think what helped this time was with Project Spaghetti, what I did was I used the actual player object, and I was assigning timelines to that. And that caused a lot of problems because I had to add a lot of extra flags and logic and everything else, and it was really hard to get working right. But this time around I did the smart thing and just had a dummy player object that inherits from player, so that all the camera stuff, everything else works fine, but I can control how it moves, like what we did with MP potential step. If that would have been in the actual player object, I would have had to have like flags saying, if this is, in a demo, then move this way and all this sort of stuff, and it would have just made things messy. But the way it is set up right now, it is pretty easy to edit that stuff and get things working, so that is good. So we have a timeline-based opening sequence. I had 8 hours for that for some reason, but that worked out. Yeah, I put this at 8 hours because of my memories of Project Spaghetti, but it worked out fine. The opening stage, yeah, we have to do some work with it, so how about this? Let's go ahead and put that at 2 and put it back in the task list here. Just so that I remember that I have to do that. And I still have to get this thing, that when the player starts the game, they start with an active monolith. That's going to be kind of tied into tutorials and stuff, though, because there's a couple of things I need to teach the player. I need to teach the player that they can circle enemies to destroy them. I need to teach the player that when they're on the ground, they can collect artifacts. When they're on the ground, they can find a monolith, which becomes a checkpoint. And if they activate a monolith, they can go out of the room and to another room. In other words, they can leave like the plains level, go to the desert level, go to the snow level, things like that. So those are the basics of what I need to teach. Also the boomerang stuff on the ground. So those are 4 or 5 things that I need to teach the player along the way. And so this monolith thing is probably going to be part of that. Thank you for watching our game development show. You can catch past episodes and this one over at youtube.com/BlueTenguStudio, all one word. If you're watching this later on YouTube, come drop by the live show we do every week on Twitch TV Blue Tengu. This is where the fun is to be had. This is where we go off topic and get rickrolled. And as I've been mentioning to the Twitch people, because I do start grad school and have my family coming back next week, I can't do this at the same time I've been doing it for the last 1.5 years, so I'm going to have to change the times. For a month, I'm going to experiment with these times. So starting next week, I'm going to experiment with these times. Sundays, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. in Japan. If you're living in Japan, I feel bad for you because you're not going to catch the show, because you'll be sleeping. But the good thing about that schedule is it means Saturdays, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. If you're in the UK, starting next week with daylight savings time and all that, it'll be 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday nights. And if you're in Australia or New Zealand, it'll be pretty close to the Japan time. It'll be too early for you, basically. So if you do drop by, top of the day to you. But yes, those would be around, the starting time would be around 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. for you guys in Australia and New Zealand as well. But we do always announce what we're doing through Twitter, so follow Tengu to keep track of when the live show starts or episodes go up, or follow us on Twitch or YouTube. You can get announcements that way. And of course, you can see what we're up to anytime over at our site, bluetengu.com. Again, if you pitched in a little extra for our Season 1 game, Project Spaghetti, you do have the Sapphire Key, which allows you to unlock the prototypes of Project Skyring and play them and test them out. Save loading is kind of working, so you can more or less play it. But there's still probably bugs here and there. And of course, we would appreciate your support in getting us greenlit on Steam. Our Season 1 game, Project Spaghetti, is on greenlight on Steam. It is a retro game. It is very Commodore 64 look, so it's hard to get greenlit. But if you can help us out, that would be great. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time, next week at a very different time. Very early for me. Thank you for watching.